You've decided you're ready to become a parent, and suddenly you're overwhelmed with people who feel they have the right to inform you on the correct way to conceive, give birth, what fears you should have, and the proper way to parent. How do you filter through the opinions? How do you know what's trustworthy information and what's a myth or just plain outdated? Welcome to the Birth Ease podcast. Join your host Michelle Smith and her guests as they cut through the noise and fear by sharing valuable tips, tools, and proven methods that help you connect with your own inner wisdom as you navigate the sacred journey that is pregnancy, birth, and parenthood in a more relaxed and confident manner. This podcast does not constitute, nor is it intended, as medical advice.
Hello, Birth Ease families. Welcome to this heartfelt space. I'm your host, Michelle Smith. In this episode, I am incredibly grateful to have this conversation with physical therapist Susan Clinton. The longer I work as a birth professional, the more I am discovering that pelvic health is an integral and vital, yet overlooked aspect of maternal health. Few birthing people and even birth professionals realize the difference that being cared for by a physical therapist can make in pregnancy, for labor and birth, postpartum, and beyond. No, leaking urine is not a normal part of pregnancy and birth. Susan Clinton is an award-winning physical therapist in professional achievement and co-owner of Embody Physiotherapy and Wellness. She is an international instructor of post-professional education in women's health, including GI issues in women, orthopedic manual therapy, and business psychology. She is on the faculty at Andrews University in the Doctor of Science in PT program. She serves as a master coach for the Integrative Women's Health Institute and is an active professional clinical member. She is the co-founder and board member for the Global Women's Health Initiative. Welcome, Susan, to the Birth Ease podcast. I am so incredibly grateful to have you here with me today.
Michelle, thank you so much for inviting me. It's my honor to sit here and speak with you and talk to your audience.
Thank you. A year ago, you were a part, and this year as well, of Lynn Schulte's Birth Healing Summit. And I heard you speak on the relationship between our voice and our pelvic floor. And it stuck with me all throughout this year, and I've been sharing it with my clients. And I would really like to delve into that more deeply. And before we do, though, can you share a little bit about your work and your projects that you have going on?
Sure, I'll be happy to. I'm a physical therapist by trade. I have been practicing for 40 years. I started off in the rehab world and in the first pandemic that I was part of, which was the AIDS pandemic. So I was familiar with changing of normals and body substance isolation and all of the work in ICUs and the changes in our infrastructure at that time.
Wow.
I kind of moved along the spectrum working in rehab and working with people with neurological injuries. And I started working with a lot of speech therapists on breath and voice, as well as body support, and noticed a lot of differences and how people could use their breath and voice if we changed their posture and changed and got them moving or stood them up or got them out of it, into different positions. And all of that was fascinating to me. Fast forward a few years in there, I started in academia, and I was also running the faculty practice in Louisiana. And there I saw a lot of patients with orthopedic problems as well as neurological problems. But I also started getting referrals from a urogynecologist who had a number of patients with pelvic pain. And then I started getting a number of referrals from colorectal doctors who were looking for pelvic floor support for their patients with incontinence. So I started delving into the pelvic floor world at that point, adding that area, that physiology of the GI system and the urinary system, and eventually the hormonal system into everything that I was considering with my clients with their movement system problems. And it just became a natural to kind of hook the breath and voice back up to what was going on with these clients as well. I noticed in my patients with a lot of pelvic pain, you can hear the changes in their voice. the changes of the strain in their voice, more high-pitched. I think everybody listening to this podcast can close their eyes and remember the last time they heard somebody in pain and just listen to their voice in their head. We don't even have to look at anybody. We know when somebody's hurting. We know when they're not feeling well. We know when they're in trouble. And I started noticing the opposite on people who were having a lot of what we like to call in the physical therapy world, forced production problems in their pelvic floor. That's a fancy word for my pelvic floor muscles aren't turning on adequately or coordinated as they should be. So we like to complicate things and call it forced production, but it basically means, that my pelvic floor muscles are just not as strong as they should be, or maybe they're not turning on at the time that they need to be turning on. In other words, when I sneeze, when I laugh, when I cough, I leak.
Okay.
And it may not be that the pelvic floor muscles aren't working, they're just not getting switched on at the right time to be protective during the laugh, the cough, the leak. But I also was listening to my clients, and a lot of them would talk about other times that they would leak. And one of them consistently across the board for postpartum mothers was that when they yell at their kids. And I don't mean like yell in anger at their kids like, you bad kid. I'm talking about stop.
Right. Right.
Don't run across the street for God's sakes. Yeah.
Don't eat that bug. Yeah.
Exactly. That sudden like forceful screaming like, no, that protective response that we have for our younglings.
Right.
And they would tell me all the time, that would be the time to dadgummit, or if I take off at a sudden, to run after the child and yelling at the same time, they would notice a leak. And so that kind of began to start to get me to think a little bit more about, okay, what is the connection here within the body system, and why is the pelvic floor under certain circumstances not behaving as it should? And if that's the case, can I use the voice and the breath system to help get that pelvic floor more automated and responding quicker to the demands that it needs? Because we can teach a pelvic floor to work, and I'm sure many of your audience has heard about doing kegel exercises. You've had a vaginal birth, maybe you've had some tearing or some stitches, in an easy case scenario. Of course, there's all cases, and I'm not trying to dismiss the more severe ones at all. But if you have a reason for your pelvic floor muscles not to be working, they've been injured, they've been stretched, they've been bruised, you've had a baby, or you've carried a baby for 9 months and you had a C-section, but still your pelvic floor muscles are a bit out of shape from really having to hold that load up for 9 months, and particularly in the last trimester. So we can do a lot of exercises, much like you would do a bicep curl. You grab a weight and do your bicep curls to get your bicep muscle stronger. And in the beginning, you notice that, oh my goodness, that 5-pound weight is really heavy. But if you keep at it, you can get to where, hey, I can really lift 20 pounds and not a problem. But I'm still struggling when I go grab the groceries to pull them out of the car. And it's like, did the strengthening exercise of getting my biceps strong translate over to lifting and carrying my groceries into the house? Well, maybe part of it did, but maybe you're still noticing that under other circumstances when I need to use my biceps, they're not working quite as well as I want them to. Or I feel like I'm struggling with kind of pulling that heavy door shut, or lifting my child because it's requiring other things to work as well as just that single muscle. So when we do Kegel exercises, we're really targeting that muscle, and it's very important to do that because we definitely want the muscle to get in better shape. We want it to get stronger. We want it to be able to lengthen like it's supposed to, lift like it's supposed to, but we also want it to coordinate when the demands come down on top of it. Because the front of the pelvic floor muscles actually close off the sphincter for urination. So it can be a double guard. We have a little sphincter right as the ureter comes out of the bladder. That's the tube that drains the bladder. There's a little bit of a gateway closure there, but then the muscles come around that tube and also compress that tube. It's kind of like kinking off the hose. So this is a great example. You're out watering your garden and you're 20 feet away from where the shutoff valve is, but you don't want to water your deck all the way back up to go up to shut off the valve. So what do? You grab the hose and you kink it off, and no more water comes out of the bottom of the hose, right? And And so then you can go up and you can turn the hose off at the top and you can drain that little bit out. But the idea is that those muscles, the pelvic floor muscles, work like that kinking off the hose there. And we want those things to work when we're under high demand, such as sneezing, coughing, laughing, running, jumping, yelling at our kids to stop doing something dangerous or to prevent them from getting in a dangerous situation.
Right.
All of those kinds of things. And I think that that's the most frustrating thing for new moms is that, they're getting their body back. They're working on raising a beautiful child that they just created. And they're not sleeping.
Mm-hmm.
They're not nourishing themselves well because they're just tired all the time. They may have other younglings running around. And on top of it now, when they're trying to do the things that they would do normally, they have to stop and go change their shorts because they sneezed really hard.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I started looking at and thinking about was, okay, let's see if we can't figure out how to automate this system. So if I could train them while they're doing that pelvic floor lift or that kegel, as a lot of people like to call it, what happens if we actually added a breath piece to it? So while you're sitting there and thinking about this, listening to the podcast, you can think about, I'm going to take a nice breath in. And now I'm going to blow the air out, but nice and easy. I'm going to pucker my lips like I'm blowing through a straw, but only hard enough to rustle the wings of a butterfly.
Mm.
So it's not a big, but it's just a kind of a small, like little forced stream of air, just enough though to rustle the wings of a butterfly. So everybody can do that. Take a nice breath in, pucker your lips, and blow. And you'll feel your stomach muscles actually begin to kind of tighten up a little bit.
Yes.
So you can do that. You can also lift your pelvic floor at the same time and begin to train that mechanism to work together. So you can try again, and this time add a little bit of that pelvic floor lift. Breath in. And then just that gentle blowout through the puckered lips and lift that pelvic floor with it. And you can feel how everything starts to recruit together. And the beauty of this system is when we are made as humans, our lips to our pelvic floor are kind of created along the same embryological pathway. In other words, when we're made as humans, we start off as little tubes. And there's a tube that goes straight from our mouth all the way down to our pelvic floor. So there's neurological connections in between that, which makes it really kind of cool. So when people are struggling, such as taking a jump, or they step off of a step quickly, or they, are going to take that first step to run, and they feel the leak, we can actually add that bit of exhale or bring their breath on to help them recruit that system a little bit more meaningful within the task. So in other words, if somebody is leaking when they're standing up with their baby after breastfeeding to get out of a chair, we can have them bring that breath on when they do that. So they can bring on that little exhale with the puckered lips. They may have to use a little bit more force to add the body movement in, but they can bring that whole breath on and help begin to start training that pelvic floor that they've already exercised and it's already gotten stronger. But now what they're doing is they're telling it that this is the time we need you to work, because the system has kind of gone offline. So we have to remind certain things that this is how we want to work again.
So in my work with mamas, I have found that some mamas are not even aware of their pelvic floor, and they don't have any idea of what a kegel is or how to relax their pelvic floor or raise their pelvic floor. So could you address that, please, so mamas are really aware of what that is?
I can certainly address the beginning of the awareness. I think in the beginning, people, when they don't have any good awareness of their pelvic floor, trying to do it laying down is really, really quite difficult. And I think that that's what everybody tries to do, is they want to lay down and activate or relax their pelvic floor. And I think sometimes having sensory input to our pelvic floor brings a lot more meaning to it. So I like to have everybody sit up and sit on a chair or wherever they can be, but I want their feet to be flat on the floor, and I want them to sit right, those two bones that you feel underneath your pelvis, we call them the sit bones because you sit on them. So I don't want people leaning back sitting on their tailbones. I want them sitting up on their sit bones. And you don't have to be really like crazy straight in your spine, but I don't want you slumped over, nor do I want you like ramrod straight, like somebody stuck a flat pole down your back. I just kind of want you easy in that sitting position so that your ribs can move easy.
Mm-hmm.
And so what we're doing here with this is we're just kind of lining things up to make it a little easier to work. That's all we're doing. This isn't like the only posture you should be in. This is just a posture that helps bring on awareness a little bit better. And so your pelvic floor sits between those two sit bones. And it also attaches to your pubic bone in front and your tailbone in the back. So you can kind of think of it as a hammock. And as you take a nice deep breath in, think about the hammock like somebody is stepping down onto the hammock, or a trampoline that's stretched between 4 points.
Okay.
Okay, so if you think about, remember if you've ever stepped on a trampoline, it gives, but your foot doesn't go all the way through to the ground.
Mm-hmm.
So what we want to think about is that pelvic floor being that trampoline at the bottom of our spine here in this sitting position. So as you take a breath in, that trampoline goes down because the air, like a balloon, is kind of, it's like filling up a balloon. So what would happen to the bottom of the balloon as you blow air into it? It begins to lengthen and fill up.
Mm-hmm.
And then as the air comes out, the bottom of the balloon lifts to actually assist the air going out. So the air comes in, the bottom of the trampoline lengthens, the air goes out, the bottom of the trampoline comes back together again. And so you can kind of think about that movement of that system and feel it deep inside with your breath. So take a deep breath in, feel it expand, and then allow the air to come out, and everything kind of comes back together. Now you're going to do it with that puckered breath out, that blowing through the straw. So you're going to take that breath in, feel that pelvic floor expand, feel your tummy expand, and then you're going to start to blow that air out through that straw, feel your tummy tighten up, and feel that pelvic floor begin to come together and lift. And you can do that again. Nice breath in. Pelvic floor expands, lengthens because the balloon is filling up. Then you're going to blow out through that hole in your mouth and feel the tummy tighten slightly, and that pelvic floor will start to lift. That's a great way for people to start to feel and become in touch with and aware of their pelvic floor. I think it's way easier than trying to do it laying down.
Oh my gosh. And that is probably the best explanation I've ever heard, honestly. So thank you. Thank you for that.
I'm so glad.
Yeah, it makes sense. It does.
I'll be interested in your listeners' feedback too. So
yeah.
Now what we can do that'll be fun, because one of the things you wanted to talk about was, and we started talking about it, was adding the voice.
Right.
What does the voice have to do with this? Well, once you become aware of your pelvic floor, we can play a little bit of a game with our voice. So what I want you to do is put your hands on your front of your rib cage, just like right over your breastbone. Just nice and easy, relax your arms. And all I want you to do is just make a middle ground hum. I'll do it for you. And now you can do it with me. Whatever is your note, doesn't matter. It doesn't have to match my pitch. But what did you feel in your breastbone? Did you feel a vibration?
Yes.
Try it again, one more time, and just really pay attention to that vibration. So you can feel that vibration under your hands, which is very cool, because that vibratory sense is going to resonate all the way down to your pelvic floor.
Yes.
So now what I want you to do in that seated position with your feet flat on the floor is take your fingers and put them on your pelvic bone, the pubic bone right in front, and do that same hum again.
I feel it vibrating. That's so cool.
Yeah, you'll feel it. And so what's cool about bones is bones transmit vibration. And when we have vibration transmitting through our bones, it hits on a certain set of neurological receptors that we have The fancy word is called proprioception. But what all that means is that it hits on the little receptors to tell us where we are in space.
Mm-hmm.
So vibration tells our muscles, oh, you need to work a little harder, a little softer, a little more, a little bigger, a little shorter. So it gives information into the movement system so that we can adapt to our environment. In other words, how do we know to contract muscles in a certain way when we step in a partial hole? Because of that sudden movement at the ankle joint, the vibratory sense tells muscles around the ankle and up into the leg, oops, switch, quick, fast, faster than the brain can think.
Yeah.
In order to be protective. And you can see that begin to happen in your little children as they grow. Watch them, how much bouncing they do, and how much bouncing we provide for them without even knowing what we're doing. You pick up your baby, what's the first thing you do? You start to kind of move, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you bounce a little bit and you swing them back and forth. And we're doing all of these things to begin to feed and prime the pump of this system, which is vitally important for their head control and eventually their trunk control, and then eventually for their ability to push up onto their legs and onto their arms and do all of those things. And as you watch them through their development of their life, they're always bouncing and doing all of those kinds of fun things. They get a new position and they bounce around in it for a while. And that's just how our system begins to work. So we can actually grab that system with our voice for our deep postural muscles and reteach that vibration to come in. So you felt the vibration with that one pitch that you did.
Mm-hmm.
Now what I want you to do is hands on the breastbone again, and I want you to take that pitch up like a higher pitch. So now I'm going to do it. And now you're going to do it with me, but feel the difference in the pitch. We'll do the original pitch first, and then we'll switch up to the higher one. Now up to the higher one.
Oh my gosh, that's so cool.
Isn't it cool?
It
And
is.
so some of you may even notice that when you went to the higher pitch, certain things happen, like your lips started feeling the vibration more.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you started feeling something a little bit more in the neck. Maybe you started feeling a little bit more tension through your system. And that's what happens when we raise the pitch. Now, if you'll take your fingers down to your pubic bone again,
Mm-hmm.
okay, and we're going to think about going from the normal pitch to the higher pitch. And then to the higher pitch. And now you may be more aware of that you're actually getting a little bit of that contraction of your tummy muscles, but the pitch has changed, the vibration has changed in the pelvic area, and some of you who are more aware may have actually felt your pelvic floor turn on, which is really cool. So now we're going to even go up to a higher pitch, but we're not going to worry about vibration now. I'm going to take you from the one pitch we started with, up a bit higher, and then up super high. So I'll do it first and we'll do it together. Okay, so here's the basic pitch. Then we're going to go up. And then we're going to go really high. And you can't get up there if you don't tighten your pelvic floor. So if you're struggling to get up really high, bring it down just a hair. I'll do it with you. Normal pitch. Come up a little bit. Or and then a little higher. If you can, just a little higher. And you can feel where it's like, oh, I can get to that one, but I can't get quite higher than that.
Right.
But you can also become aware of, that's where my pelvic floor is really working.
Okay.
So it's really nice for people who are trying to become aware and bring coordination into their pelvic floor again, so it'll turn on when we want it to actually be thinking about starting to talk when we do our pelvic floor exercises. So people do this in the gym all the time. They lift a weight, and what do? Oh, they make a noise, right? And that noise and that vibration tells that internal body system, fire up, we're carrying a bigger load now. And so that's really important for people to do. What new moms I notice do all the time is hold their breath. And so now we're not getting any of the vibratory sense. We're not getting the input into the system that we want. We're just locking the system down where it is. And so the pelvic floor muscles don't really get a chance to respond as well, because although they can move with a locked breath, they can't move well. So, but if we can bring on that breath, like through the straw, like we talked about, or even add a pitch to it, or, as we kind of go, we can actually start revving the engine up for our pelvic floor to work better. So one of the things you can do is, as you go to lift your baby, talk to your baby. Talk in a little bit of a higher pitch. Hello, darling, as you lift them up so the pelvic floor can come up too. You can play games with this. The coolest thing about having kids, and even for grandparents, is read all the stories out loud and do all the voices. They'll talk like the little bitty teeny weeny fairy and the big bad wolf. So the pelvic floor trampoline has to lengthen and still produce that vibration. So we can get all of those pitches in and do things. Another really great way to get your pelvic floor going is to sing. Turn on your music and get to singing again. And it's fun to sing the little kid song, but sometimes it's a lot more fun to sing your own music. So, and play with that, because it's really a great activity for restoring that function, that anticipatory or that recoordinated, drawing those muscles on at the time when we need them, is by adding that voice in and doing it. So now it starts to make sense with the yelling, right? If we can train these pitches and moving the pelvic floor together, now we can start to train them louder and louder, so that when we start to go, no, we've got that pelvic floor coming in and reacting so we don't leak.
This is brilliant.
And so this is kind of how the system works together. And it's just so much fun to do, because I'm going to tell you, who wants to sit there and do Kegel exercises 500 times all day long? And I'm not saying that they're not important. They are, because it's important to develop a strength of a muscle system. But it's also as important, and I learned this from all of my rehab days, that if we don't put that strength into functional activities, we don't keep it. So doing all the bicep curls in the world is great, but we also have to train the arms and the biceps to work together to lift groceries, to pull doors shut, to grab our children and hold them, to open a heavy car door with groceries in the other hand. We have to bring that training into the real world in order for it to stick.
Right.
And so that's why I hear a lot of mothers will come in and see me as a PT and say, I've been doing my pelvic floor exercises or my kegels for a long time, and it's not helping. And sure enough, they actually can lift their pelvic floor very nicely. But I notice that when they cough, that pelvic floor muscle isn't responding and coming up, or they sneeze. So it's not working when they need it. They can make it work, but what we want to do is make it work when we need it. So we'll do one last exercise, which is a lot of fun. I'm going to have everybody stand up on their feet. And once you're standing there, all I'm going to have you do is think about what a normal sneeze looks like, or a normal cough. And I know that we're in the days of a pandemic here, and everybody's trying not to cough on people.
Right.
But we still want to be smart about this. So we're covered with masks, and we can also take our elbow and cover our face, so we can still be safe while we do this. But most of us, when we cough, if you think about it, just picture yourself coughing. And I know that most of you are going to be doing the following. You're going to be kind of dropping your back down and falling back on your heels, and your head's going to drop into your chest as you sneeze and cough. Correct? I think most of us, it's kind of a patterned culture for us. But think about what needs to happen when we cough or sneeze. The whole idea behind it is that we need to clear the airway. There's no other point of doing this. And if we drop everything down and we start to try to produce a sneeze, where's all the forces going to go? They're all going to go down into our pelvic floor instead of up and through our airway. So not only are we not clearing the airway, but we're putting all this pressure down on our poor pelvic floor that isn't being very coordinated right now. So if we could do anything at all, it would be hold your head up to cough and sneeze. Just cover with your hands over your face, or the inside of your elbow over your face, but don't drop your head down and push everything down. Make sure that you're directing that cough up and out. Same thing with a sneeze. Don't hold your sneezes back. How do we sneeze? Everybody grabs their nose to sneeze, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so when you do that, everything goes down.
Right. Right. Right.
So take some Kleenex if you have it and cover your nose or put your hand over your nose, but let your sneezes out. People laugh at me when I talk to them because they all come away with, the hashtags, and my hashtag is let her rip. But seriously, I'll say this on a cautionary note too. People have detached their retinas by holding their sneezes back.
Yeah.
Let's don't do that.
Yeah.
Sneezes need to happen. Let's go ahead and sneeze. It's really okay. Good sneezing is important, but it's also going to help coordinate your pelvic floor. And so when we train with like laughing and going up high in pitches and doing singing and stuff, and we open ourselves up in our upper airway for sneezing and coughing, now we're setting our system up to understand how it needs to work. Because if you're going to yell at your kids, you're not going to drop your head down into your chest to yell no at your kids, are you?
Mm-mm.
That position, think about you're saying no, like arms out, like you're like trying to grab them from whatever it is they're fixing to do. And imagine where your head position is. That's your head position for sneezing and coughing. Because you got to get this no out. You've got to get the sound out. Okay, we know that we're not going to yell at our kids with our head down in our chest. We're going to yell at our kids with our head up and out so that the voice will carry. That's how you can use your voice to kind of train that pelvic floor a little bit. So it's kind of fun to go outside and do outdoor games.
Mm-hmm.
Remember the game Marco Polo? Like Marco Polo, and everybody's yelling from all over the place. Fun games like that can be just really, really positive for pelvic floor retraining. Being in positions where it's okay and legitimate to get outside and yell and play games where like kids win, that they throw their arms up in the air and celebrate and do it with them. We're way too reserved.
Mm-hmm.
We need to be having a lot more fun. But that will also re-coordinate and help train our pelvic floor. And people, I know moms aren't doing that because they're worried they're going to leak.
Right. Right.
In the back of their head, they've already shut that down because, nope, I don't do that. I might leak. And now we have a system and a way to kind of go forth and say, you know what, if you're going to go out and run and play with your kids in the meantime while you're getting your pelvic floor back on board, put on a pad and go play and scream and yell and see how much drier that pad gets over time rather than not wearing a pad and not doing anything. So pads to me have a place. They're there for while we're in the training program.
Yeah.
Then eventually we don't need them anymore. But we might need them in the beginning when we're not so good at bringing our pelvic floor on when we really need it.
So I have a quick question.
Absolutely.
Because when we were doing this, when you're using that higher pitch sound, it feels like everything goes upward. It gets pulled upward.
Mm-hmm.
And when you use a really low, like, everything relaxes down.
Exactly.
Okay.
So if you're having pain or you've been told your pelvic floor doesn't relax well, then those lower pitched voices can be very, very, very helpful for getting that pelvic floor to let go, to release a little bit, to relax, to not be pulled in. So when we're anxious, we're upset, we're under threat, our pelvic floor is going to be riding high.
Yeah, it tightens, right?
Yeah, tightens.
Okay.
It tightens, it lifts, it's protective.
Yeah, okay.
And then when we're in the other state where, like if you think about Lauren Bacall's voice, where, women get really sexy, their voice drops. Like, hello, come on in. It's not like, hello, how are you? I really don't want you near me,
Right.
So our voice can tell a lot about how we are, but it can also help our system, and that's the entire nervous system. If we're in a more relaxed nervous system state, then it's easier to hug and love and kiss and make love and, and even eat and digest and enjoy. When we're in a more of a uptight, stressed, have to get it done type of system or running from the tiger type of system, then our system is on and ready to act, and we're not in the mood to love and hug and kiss and eat because we're telling our GI system, we don't need you right now. And we're telling the rest of the system, this is not the time for propagating the tribe. This is the time for individual survival. And that's just the way our nervous system is put together. So we can harness the breath and the voice to help begin to regulate that system again. And that can be quite helpful for everybody.
Yeah, it just makes so much sense to me. And thank you so much for sharing it. And I know from working with birth, if your jaw is tight,
Mm-hmm.
your pelvic floor is tight.
Mm-hmm.
When women have a real high voice while they're birthing their baby, it's closing everything off. If a woman can have that real low tone, and women, when they push spontaneously, it is that more low, grunty kind of
Right,
sound,
that
which is
open.
more,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, expulsive. So it's pulling everything all together, like the pieces that I've
Good.
learned here and there. Yeah, this is great.
Awesome.
From what I understand, too tight of a pelvic floor isn't any better than too loose or not. You want a healthy tone in your pelvic floor,
Right.
right?
Right. And so when we talk about the pelvic floor, it's no different than any other muscle in our body. And the best one to do is the biceps, because people are so familiar with that biceps muscle.
Mhm.
So if you think about your bicep muscle was overworking all the time, you would not be able to stretch your arm out.
Right, right.
Okay? So you know that in order for your arm to work the best and function, there's times when it needs to stretch out completely. And there are times when it needs to close up or fold up completely. And it needs to be able to move through those ranges with the greatest of ease. So if we're carrying a heavier load, we may have it not stretched out all the way. And, it's got a little action to it. But if we're eating, we don't want it to be that tight. We want to be able to go down to our plate and up to our mouth and down to our plate and up to our mouth, or reach behind the seat of the car and lift something up and over, and reach out to push a door or bring the door towards us. The pelvic floor needs to do the same. We don't want the pelvic floor just hanging out and not activating at all, nor do we want it riding high and tight all the time, because that just means that it's being overworked.
Mm-hmm.
So in other words, it's being called into a state of action all the time, and it can't do the thing that it needs to do, which is be that trampoline, stretch down
Mm-hmm.
and pop up and stretch down and pop up. So when we get ready to do that big sneeze and we do the those breaths in before we sneeze, that's actually priming the pump for the pelvic floor and for the
Mm.
abdominal muscles. But if that pelvic floor is overworking, it's not going to lengthen in order to pop back up to be protected for the sneeze. Does that make sense?
It really does.
Yeah.
I'm sitting here and taking it all in, what you're saying.
Right. So we don't want this super relaxed pelvic floor all the time, nor do we want one that's overworking all the time. We want it to be able to move back and forth through all of those motions. And that's where that coordination and bringing it into real-time action begins to be very helpful for people.
Yeah. And everything you're describing is so different than when moms are taught that a kegel, or a woman, anyone, that it's stopping and starting the flow of urine.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, no.
Right. No, we don't
Yeah,
want to do that.
yeah,
No,
exactly.
no.
Exactly.
Bathroom's another whole situation. Don't hover over the toilet seat. If you're worried about the toilet seat, bring wipes, and everybody's got wipes in Ziploc bags with them now anyway, so pull one of them out. Clean off the seat, sit down, and go to the bathroom. Don't hover, because you're not going to relax your pelvic floor. And the other thing is that don't practice doing a kegel by shutting your urine off and on, because when it's time to pee, you need to pee.
Right, right.
Let your bladder do its thing. And then you can practice your pelvic floor exercise. So that could be a good time to have more awareness to your pelvic floor, is after you finish urinating. You can sit there and do a few of your lifts, because you're aware now. You've just used your pelvic floor and it's in a relaxed position in order to allow you to void completely. So now you can work on, okay, now I can do a few lifts and hold and kind of just remind it that it can work again now. And then you can do your straw breath and get up and clean yourself up, and out the door you go. But yes, don't do every once in a while. I'll tell people once every 2 months you can retest and see if you can stop your urine flow.
Okay.
But don't do that every day as an exercise. It can be a spot check-in every once in a while.
Okay.
But we don't want to interrupt the normal neural mechanism of going to the bathroom.
Right.
Yeah.
And doing a pelvic floor lift, it involves more muscles than just starting and stopping the flow of urine, yes?
Right. It involves lifting the whole pelvic floor mechanism. Now we can always split that up, and that gets into a little bit more intricacies of physical therapy.
Right.
But for the most part, yeah, you don't want to just be squeezing off, because what people end up doing when they don't have really coordinated or even super strong pelvic floors yet, is they end up trying to cut off their urine by using all muscles that aren't really going to be the muscles that are going to be good at it. So sometimes it feeds into a pattern that is already there, and we don't need to strengthen a pattern that we already have. We need to bring in new patterns and strengthen those. You're already good at the other patterns. You already have them. They're there. We don't need to, make those stronger. We need to bring new patterns in and make those stronger.
Right.
So people will do all kinds of weird things, like they'll really squeeze their butt cheek muscles a lot to cut off their urine flow. And those muscles have nothing to do with the urethra or closing it off. They don't. They bring your legs together a little bit, and people have the perception that it might work, but it doesn't really work.
So if a mom were going to laugh or cough, then they want to prime the pump, right? And take that breath in and then exhale through the straw. Yes?
Yes.
I just want to make sure we're all understanding it correctly.
Yes. So, but if you're in the moment of laughing and or sneezing or coughing, just think about the moment of yelling.
Okay.
And kind of get your body in a little bit more like the head up and forward, and laugh out loud.
Okay.
Laugh back. And like I said, so because it's really hard, when you hear something funny, you're just going to start laughing.
Right.
And instead of trying to hold the laugh back, laugh out loud. Go ahead, just bring it up, because it's a nice exhalation, kind of forceful exhalation that allows for laughing and sneezing and coughing and yelling.
Okay.
And the practicing of the breath and the pitch and that kind of stuff can really help re-coordinate that, so that when you do spontaneously laugh, you're in a different position and you're able to work with the forces easier. And it's those things that will just take time. Re-coordination of system takes a little bit of time. It's not going to happen day one, but it will happen.
Yeah. Well, at least there's I shouldn't say at least. I mean, you're providing a way to re-coordinate it, because I found women just think, oh, I need to do a kegel by stopping and starting the flow of urine. And there's so much more to it, as you said. So if a mom's going to stand up with her new baby, can you go over that again, how she would want to do that, please?
Sure. So if you're going to stand up holding your baby, hold your baby in any position that you feel the most comfortable and protective of your baby. And as you go to stand up, just either start talking, so you have that exhale coming out.
Okay.
Or blow through your straw.
Okay.
To automate that system, to bring it on. And it's just basically to remind you not to breath hold as you go to stand up.
Okay.
Because what people do is they get in a position, they start to lean forward to stand up, and then they hold their breath really hard.
Okay.
And oftentimes that's when they leak. So if you start to talk or you start to breathe through that straw, blow through that straw, you're not going to be breath holding, and it's easier for those muscles to start learning to recruit, or learning to turn on appropriately as you start to do that movement.
Right. And it's engaging the core.
Yeah, it's engaging those deep postural muscles.
Okay. Just want to make sure I'm understanding it all correctly. And like I said, the pieces that I've gathered all over, is you're really bringing this all together. So thank you so much.
You're so welcome. My pleasure.
Thank you. So can you talk a little bit about when a mama is giving birth? Like I touched on it a little bit, but can you discuss how using your voice helps with the birth of the baby?
It probably depends upon where you are.
Okay.
I would just say that when it comes time for like that end stage pushing, all bets are off, right? It's like, let's just go.
Right.
We're not thinking anymore about strategies or this or that, other than, you're helping with position or reminding them, giving all the body positions you can to help the push be the most successful. But I think what we're probably talking about is more of that second stage labor, where we're just kind of hanging out and having those really pretty heavy contractions sometimes. The more breathing that can go on during that, and the more of just lowering that pitch into that kind of, even that growly kind of pitch, can be very, very helpful.
I feel like what happens sometimes when mamas are pushing with their baby, traditionally doing that coached Valsalva pushing, it's almost like they take a breath in and then they blow it out. and they want to push effectively, and especially if they have an epidural, which I'm not saying epidurals are bad and wrong. That's not what I'm saying, but things are numb.
Right.
Right. And so they take a breath in, and it's almost like they pull everything up, and then they hold their breath and they push in their face.
I see what you're saying.
All the movement, it seems like, is from the diaphragm up, and it's not low in their bottom when you grunt.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. And so one of the techniques that I have learned from a lot of people who do that intrapartum work, and you might find this technique very helpful. And some of you ladies out there, you'll need to be coached, because at that time you're not going to be thinking about it. Trust me.
Right.
It's not.
Right.
Taking that deep breath in when they say, okay, another big push coming. And so everybody takes that deep breath in. Start to blow the air out and then cut off your breath. So in other words, everyone can do it. Take a deep breath in. Now hold your breath. Oop. So you feel how that feels? Now try it this way. We're going to take a deep breath in. Then we're going to start to let some air out. Then we're going to cut it off. So breath in, deep. Blow the air out a little bit. Now cut it off.
Yes.
And you feel how it starts to really be more down low.
Right. Right. Or I'll tell Mama, if you watch them push spontaneously, they'll, right?
Yeah.
And when you do that, you breathe in, and it's almost like you're retaining the breath or doing a little bit of what you described, and the movement is downward.
Right. You're basically bringing a little bit more effort, force to the airway, so that positions of force can be directed downward rather than upward. And, so grunting and growling, and people do that in the gym all the time too.
Right.
Those are appropriate things for helping. And then, of course, nature's taken over. The neurological system at that point isn't going to cut off your pelvic floor and tell it to tighten up. It's just not going to. The neurological system is going to say, we're moving everything out of here. That's why we're having these ridiculous contractions, and it's going to override anything that you think you can do down at your pelvic floor.
Right.
All you're doing with your breath and all of the pushing and stuff is assisting what nature has provided naturally.
Right.
And by doing the active work with it, makes it somewhat less uncomfortable. Or painful. Still going to hurt, no question, but it's better than to just be passive.
Right.
So if you're not going to be passive, then let's be part of the solution.
Right. It usually feels good to work with your body instead of being passive.
Or working against it even. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's interesting. Years ago, I was attending a birth at the birth center with a midwife friend of mine. I was the doula, and it was the mom's fourth baby. And the baby was coming quickly, and she made these more higher pitched sounds. And I was so used to being a doula in the hospital at that time, where they would say, no noise, don't make any noise, right? Hold your breath and push. And afterwards, I was talking to the midwife, and the sounds the mom made were so instinctive. And the midwife said, as fast as that baby was coming, I knew that those sounds were helping to slow the baby down and protect her pelvic floor, because if she had held her breath and pushed really hard, the baby would have come even more quickly. And that always stuck with me, because there's sounds women make when a baby is coming very quickly. And all of us that work in the birth field know to run, because the baby is going to be born. There's these certain sounds, and that's part of why your correlation with our jaw and our voice and our pelvic floor has been so fascinating to me.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's a great observation.
Yeah, it's just amazing. It's amazing. So if you had any other wonderful tips and pearls of wisdom that you would want to share with families, either during labor or pregnancy or postpartum, what would that be?
Probably my biggest tip is, especially if you're immediate postpartum, or even, down the road postpartum, if you are having problems with leaking of urine, if you're having problems with pain with vaginal intercourse, or even vaginal insertion, just trying to use a tampon or anything like that, if you're having problems, do not put it off, and do not wait for it to get better, because what we know about women is that even those who like tend to get a bit better after the first 6 weeks, but they still have minor leaking, that gets worse over time. And it's so easy to help you take care of it. And it's so worth it to take the time to care for yourself and get this whole pelvic system back online. And so do not hesitate to reach out to myself, or Michelle will help direct you to somebody in your area that can work with you. You know, at this point in time, I know people are doing a lot of telehealth. There's so much I get done with people on telehealth. It's unbelievable. They just don't believe it. But I mean, just look at what you learned today. There's just so much that can be done. And we really want you to prioritize yourself, because what it shows is that women who are leaking don't tend to exercise and be as healthy. And that is absolutely what we don't want. We want you running, jumping, screaming, laughing, and playing with your kids and your family and your growing family. And we want you back out there doing the things that you love to do too, and feeling confident in your body and confident in yourself. And so my biggest advice is do not put it off. Reach out for help. We are here, and oftentimes it's such an easy fix that we can really help you get back to where you want to be pretty rapidly.
That is such good news, because so often you kind of hear, well, that's just how it is, right?
No, yeah, that's the thing, is that we're all of the generation now that we're not going to be, you know, I can tell you I'm much older, but, you know, I know people call us boomers, but my generation, at least where I am with my peers, we're not going quietly into the night. You know, we're still working. We plan to keep working.
Right.
We're not sitting in a rocking chair knitting blankets. We're moving, you know, we're going, we're working. We believe that exercise is the way to having a very healthy later adult life. And all of you all should be not putting up with this. Social justice. This is the generation of social justice. Why am I being left behind as a female? No, demand the help and go and find a physical therapist that deals with pelvic health. That's the best way. Go there. Okay? Start there. We're the number one entry point for you, and we will help you get what you need to get going.
Yeah, and I feel it's good to do it even in pregnancy. Before you have the baby, let's address if there's any restrictions in your pelvis.
Yep. If you're having leaking during pregnancy, if you are having pelvic pain during pregnancy or any kind of back pain or hip pain, you should not be putting that off. Come see us. We can help you. I don't want to ever hear this again. Oh, it'll be better after you have your baby. Nonsense. Let's be better now.
Yeah.
Let's always be better now. Let's find a better way to live.
Yeah.
No more putting up with things. Us females of today, or people who identify as females, we do not need to be putting up with things. We are the group that's going to be taking care of each other and supporting each other and ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree.
Yep.
I agree. Thank you for that. And my mind keeps going back to your interview in this year's Birth Healing Summit about chew your food. Make sure you chew your food. So can you touch on that real quick?
Yes. Sure. If you're having any problems with constipation, which a lot of people do in pregnancy postpartum, besides all the other things, and that was another whole like 2 or 3 podcasts, but
right.
The number one most important thing you can do, that's the most efficient thing for you ever, that will increase the absorption of your food and will also increase the peristalsis in your body, is to simply and completely chew your food. And the study that this comes off of was looking at people who ate almonds, and those who had 40 chews versus 20 chews had 40 to 50% more absorption of the nutrients from the almond than those who only chewed 20 times. So chew your food. Take the time to eat and chew your food.
Yeah, and have healthy, quick snacks, because we know what it's like when you're breastfeeding and postpartum, and chew them. Exactly. So if someone wanted to reach out to you, how could they find you?
You can find me on my website, which is embody, embody-pt.com, or you can email me at Susan@embody, embody-pt.com. Are 2 of the quickest ways to find me. Email works best. I'm also on Facebook, and I'm on Instagram and Twitter. My Instagram handle is SClintonPT, as it is on Twitter. And on Facebook, I'm Susan Coel Clinton, COEL.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And that information will be in the show notes as well.
Yes, absolutely.
And she has a podcast, so you can find her.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I have a podcast called Tough to Treat. And for those dealing with chronic pain, persistent pain, we have a podcast called The Genius PT Project.
Excellent. Excellent. So if any physical therapists are out there listening, then those are the podcasts to find for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you again so much. I am so grateful. You brought so much stuff for me together, and I know it will for families as well. So thank you for taking this time for us. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. It's been my honor to be here.
Thank you. Thank you. And thank you all for listening. And now you understand that your pelvic floor is like a trampoline, and we want that nice, healthy tone. And if you're enjoying the show, please share it with a friend. And you can rate, review, and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Because when you do, that helps get the show and the information out to more people.
For more great conversations like these, or to find out more information and access Michelle's library of amazing guests, go to birtheaseservices.com/podcast. For more information on the Birth Ease method, Michelle's classes, meditations, and other services, go to birtheaseservices.com. For more great conversations like these, or to find out more information and access Michelle's library of amazing guests, go to birtheaseservices.com/podcast. For more information on the Birth Ease method, Michelle's classes, meditations, and other services, go to birtheaseservices.com.